All right, boom. We're going. What's up, Tommy? How's it going?
Doing good. How you doing?
Doing good. So, you do a lot of stuff.
Yes, I am pretty busy.
Just
My
like,
interests are wide and varying.
yes, man, you do some cool stuff. So I guess why don't we just when someone kind of asks you what you do, what do you say to them? Like, what's
It's a
your answer?
totally loaded question when somebody asks me that. I usually ask, "Do you want the long version or the short version?"
Oh, give me the long version now. I need that.
Okay, I'm a semi-retired visual effects and stereoscopic supervisor for the motion picture industry. I also own Brick Nerd, which is a multifaceted multimedia company, Lego-based. It is an animation company, stop motion animation company, a design studio, a design, uh, what's it? A YouTube channel, which is sort of fallen to the wayside now.
Oh, okay.
Um, what's the other aspect of the company? It's falling apart. And then I also have Nerds and Makers, which is something I'm still trying to build up. And I've kind of I've always had this interest in cool stuff, making things like this gaffy stick and
Oh, whoa.
blaster up there. That's I haven't done much of it for the last few years, and I just kept wanting to and wanting to. I mean, I'm always making something every day. I'm making something,
Mm-hmm.
but I finally decided to. This was a lounge area in here, and I started that website, and then I started this makerspace so that I could just have a place to build stuff.
Dude, sweet.
So yeah, I'm just always making something.
Yeah. So
Whatever.
you've turned Brick Nerd into kind of like a business, yeah, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Um, I used to work at a company called Cafe FX, and that's located in Santa Maria. I live in Lompoc, about 30 minutes away.
Uh-huh.
When that company, I was there for the better part of 17 years. We worked on movies.
Mm-hmm.
When that company went under, I started chasing work all over the planet. And I was in Acapulco, I was in San Diego, I was in New York, I was in Philadelphia, and then I spent 9 months in London away from my family. And
Mm.
about halfway through that experience, I was like, I'm done. I gotta be doing something different.
Right.
So when I came back here, I continued to work in film. I rented a place in Los Angeles, so at least I could come home for the weekends. And I worked on a couple features down there. But then when I was done with those, I decided I just need to take the control my own fate.
Mm-hmm.
Started Brick Nerd, not knowing if I could make any money with it. Turns out not really. Blogs are not terribly lucrative. I mean, it does okay, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then the stop motion thing happened sort of accidentally. I
Oh.
was working. Oh, my Stream Deck is freaking out. Oh well. Um, I was at a Lego convention in Seattle called BrickCon, and I had a mock, we call it, my own creation. It's a
Uh-huh.
name. I had a creation set up, but as a representative of a film studio. It's like a behind the scenes thing. The theme that year was cows versus pigs. It's a stupid theme, but I built a thing. It was like the behind the scenes of Moo Raker, and it was this cows versus pigs sci-fi drama that was being made. Really kind of out there idea. The whole thing is very difficult to explain, but somebody, well, simultaneously to this, there is a documentary being shot called Beyond the Brick, the Lego Brickumentary.
Mm-hmm.
They were shooting that weekend at the con to just to get footage for the convention stuff. They'd already been to another convention as well, and the director was looking at it while I happened to be standing next to it, and he said, "This guy's industry." You could tell by looking at it that I work in the film, and he was like,
Right.
"Oh yeah, that's me." So we just started chatting. Turned out their documentary needed uh, bridging segments for all. It was kind of broken into different parts of the film, different segments, and they wanted stuff to bridge the gaps. And they also wanted to tell the story of Lego at the beginning in Lego. I forgot to get my mom. Hang on a second. Dismiss. Shut up. I'll beat my phone while I'm at it.
No worries.
So we got to talking. Originally, they were talking about doing it in CG, which I also have a background in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, their budget didn't really support that plan. So they asked if it could possibly be done in stop motion. And about that same time, in town here, I met James Moore, who was from Spastic, Chihuahua. It's his own company.
Uh-huh.
Completely coincidentally, we both live in Lompoc, which is a tiny town. There's like 45,000 here. It's a small city.
Right.
And how there's another filmmaker, Lego guy, animator in town, and we don't know each other beyond either of us, but we had just met, and right at the same time, this guy's saying, "Can you do a stop motion do stop motion for our film?" And we're like, "Okay, this is all kind of happening and falling into place."
Yeah.
So he and I rented a place in this same complex. I looked all over town for some small place that I could have for just a couple months.
Mm-hmm.
We set up shop, and we did, what was it, 9 minutes total, I think, of video, stop motion animation for this film. We did an animated segment at the beginning of it, and then we did little interstitials that go between all the different segments, and then there was title sequence stuff we did as well. And the idea was we'd set up and then we'd tear down when we were done, but I loved having all my Lego over here instead of in my garage, and I was also doing the YouTube channel at the same time, so it's like just move the whole thing over here. Ended up I shrunk down a little bit because I had 2 spaces, and then this space came available, and then I was like, well, I really like having all my stuff over here, so piled all the stuff into this bigger unit. He moved in, took a space in the corner, and we've been here ever since, making stupid videos for clients.
Wow. Right on.
Do stop motion video.
Yeah, that is sweet.
Yeah.
No, that's a cool story. So what was it was just kind of like you just happened to meet these guys at the, where were you at, a Lego BrickCon kind of thing?
Yeah, BrickCon in Seattle. It's a yearly Lego convention every October.
Okay.
They were their documentary there. I'm actually in the documentary a little bit. And
nice.
That's how we just happened to meet. They talk about animation. I happen to know animation. So just all these pieces fell into place.
Yeah, it's crazy how that worked out.
Yeah.
And it was just at the time when you were wanting to kind of start up Brick Nerds more, right?
Well, Brick Nerd, I never had a full plan in place for it. I knew it was going to be a blog. And I wanted to concentrate on the building and art side of Lego. Not so much the news and reviews. I mean, reviews become part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the what drives traffic to the YouTube channel and to the website, but they also take a lot of time, and sets pile up, and it's in the beginning it was really expensive, and then as I got Lego support and they would start sending me stuff, obviously that part became not so much expensive. But since then there were so many blogs that got created that they had to feed so many mouths that it almost completely dried up. In fact, I really haven't had anything sent to me in almost over a year actually. Yeah.
Okay.
So the last thing I did that was Lego provided was the Millennium Falcon.
Oh, sweet.
Which I got to build with Adam Savage from Mythbusters. That was cool.
Yeah, I saw that. That's cool. So how did that happen? How did that happen? They just contacted you?
I contacted them. The Falcon was big news. Everybody knew about it. Everyone was super excited. And when I think there were 12 that were going to be sent out to the different blogs and websites for them to review. I was 12. I was like, yes. So
nice.
Contacted Norm from Tested. I have a Falcon, and that's pretty much all he needed to hear. I packed it up. It arrived. I was already packed and ready to go. They dropped it off. I put it right in my truck and drove to San Francisco. And we got all set up. And then the next morning we started building it. And we built all day that day, and then all day the next day, or half the day next day.
Oh, wow.
It took 12 of us 12 hours to build. I think is how it worked out.
Wow. How big is that thing?
It's huge. It's like the biggest Lego set ever. I don't know if the Hogwarts castle is dethroned as far as number of parts, but that's also small parts. It's a micro scale set.
Right.
It's just lots of little parts. The Falcon itself is, it's that big. It's huge.
Oh my gosh.
Like it's like a 36 inches, I think, long,
Jeez.
and over 7,000 parts. It's gigantic.
God, that thing's crazy. That must be cool to see in person.
Yeah, that's actually really cool.
That's
Since then,
sweet.
I've actually added the lights and sound kit from Brick Stuff to it. There's also I put some video of that on as well, and it's now even cooler. I mean, it's got a remote control and it makes noise. I'm planning on hanging it in the corner of the shop. The other side of the building is well, I'm in the back room. The front room is like my office as well as the building design area. That's where all the Lego is, and then there's also a production suite, and then James's area, his corner.
Right.
I'm planning on hanging the Falcon in the corner of the front room. It's just sort of terrifying to do. I got little hooks and to go on a drop ceiling. So I have a drop ceiling in here. And I bought like super high tensile strength fishing line, the braided.
Yeah.
But still, I can't work up the nerve. It's gonna be fine thing it up there because it's like, I think it's over 15 pounds.
Yeah, it's pretty massive.
Lego, and it's not the sturdiest of things. You can't build something that big and that weird, complex with all those intersecting compound curves and stuff without sacrificing a little bit of strength. And
Right.
it won't take a fall.
Yeah. Ooh.
Obliterate itself.
Oh man,
It's kind of terrifying.
that would be scary.
Cool. There's a sign. It takes 2 USB cords to hook up. There's a sign plug right on the ceiling there, so I can hang it up in the corner, run the plugs up, and then you just have the remote control and you just fire it up.
Man, that's gonna be cool when you get that thing up there, though.
Yep.
That's gonna be awesome. So, oh, go ahead. What?
But it's scary as hell.
Yeah, you'll work up the nerve one day, though.
Yeah.
I mean, if it
live on Twitch, this should be fun.
Oh yeah.
There's every possibility it'll come crashing down spectacularly.
I mean, if it falls, is it done for good, or is it just going to be in pieces so you can rebuild it? What do you think?
Well, that's the great thing about Lego. Unless you try really hard, it's never really broken. You can always put it together. So
right.
it would be instantaneous kit form. So
right.
Probably wouldn't be damaged.
So what do the instructions on that thing look like?
They're I don't have it right here, but it's a spiral bound manual about an inch and a quarter thick.
Jeez.
The biggest form factor they make is about like that.
Right.
I don't know, which is like 16 by 9.
Uh-huh.
Maybe a little bit wider, 16 by 12.
Wow.
Spiral bound. It's a book.
Yeah, for real.
Yep.
Does anybody try it without the instructions? Just do it on their own?
Oh, I don't see how you could. Probably somebody out there insane enough to try, but yeah, you can't really reverse engineer from the outside in.
Yeah.
Just the way it's built is kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, it's got interior sections on it that you can't see. I mean, I suppose if you had enough photographs of other people building it, you could do it. But if you just have the picture on the cover, there's no way.
No way, huh?
I just don't think you can do that.
So are the instructions pretty clear? Are they good, or are they kind of like IKEA style with just photos?
Well, they're typical Lego. There's no words in it. It's all just pictures of the model being put together. It's
okay.
Pretty good. I mean, there's always some problems when you're putting things together. Like you can't tell what there's one piece that was added in there that you missed. It's a tiny piece and it was off one section that you didn't notice. And you get like 6 to 8 steps later, and suddenly you can't attach something because that piece is missing. Oh no!
Yeah.
Back it up, figure out where you do. But you can do that on a small set too. It's not that uncommon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds fun. Do they still sell those things?
Yeah.
How much are those? Do you know offhand?
I think it's 800.
800.
600. Actually, I'll just look. I'm sitting right here in front of a computer.
We have the technology.
Lego.com. And of course, it's being very slow. Falcon. I can tell you it's so expensive that if I didn't have, if Lego hadn't sent it, I still wouldn't have one. Yeah, it's $800.
$800, man.
It's $800. Let's see if it's got the part number on there. They stopped putting part numbers on it on some stuff. Yeah, there we go. 7541. 7,541 pieces.
Wow.
It's an epic build.
Yeah, that's cool.
Hogwarts. Hogwarts Castle. This one's only $400, but also had a really high part count. Let's see what it is. Oh, it's only 6,020. So the Falcon still reigns supreme.
Falcon beats it, huh?
Yeah, by over 1,000 parts.
Didn't they have an old Falcon? Lego had an older one before this one?
Yeah, they had. It's very, very similar to the set. When we were building it at Tested, Sean Charlesworth brought his old one in. And that's like the old kind of holy grail of sets. They were going for ridiculous prices on eBay and the aftermarket. Still are, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But he brought in, he had to do a little bit of repair work for it. Apparently, some things fell off a bookshelf on it. But him and his wife hastily put it back together, and we had it there for reference when we were building the new one. And they are almost identical scale, but vastly different build aesthetic and final look.
Huh,
the new one's
interesting.
Way smoother, less studs on it, and the way that they handle some of the compound curves is a totally different approach.
Yeah.
I really like the new one, actually, a lot better than the old one.
Yeah. It's crazy. How do you know how like they kind of, because are they all like specialty made pieces pretty much to make these sets that Lego creates?
No, I think the only new part in that set, I mean, there's custom printed ones, but I think the cockpit was the only new part that was made specifically for that set.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
So someone at Lego just kind of figured out how to build it and make it look crazy. I'm sure a whole team of people did, huh?
It was primarily one designer. He probably had two other guys helping, and then I'm sure it took probably a year and a half to set it all out between building it over and over again and figuring out where the weak points are and strengthening it and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a fast process for stuff. They work on stuff well ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. That seems like a cool, fun job. They just give you like something to work on and then figure out how to build it.
Yeah.
Is that do you do that kind of stuff too, or you're mostly doing kits that have already been
I build on stuff too.
Okay.
Yeah. The thing about being a Lego designer is you have to live in Billund, Denmark, and it's a really small town. It's like this. Imagine a small European village with a giant factory stuck in the middle of it, and that's what Billund is. It's actually kind of I don't want to say bleak. When I was there, it was pretty bleak, but it was like just coming out of winter. And just walking around, I was like, it's like Topeka with less charm. But I'm sure in the spring and other times of the year, it's a really nice place. And the people were amazing. But it's a teeny tiny town in the middle of nowhere in Denmark. And if you're going to work at Lego, unless you're going to work in the LA, the American offices, which are in Connecticut.
Oh, okay.
But they don't do set designs there. The set designing is all done in Billund. So,
that's cool. So you've been there? Can you go visit it? Is it open to the public?
You can do a factory tour.
Okay.
It's really open to the public. But they just completed a thing called the Lego House, which is open to the public, which is kind of like a combination of a event center and a museum. And it's gigantic, and I haven't been there yet, but it looks really cool. And there's also the first Legoland is right there next to the park, as well as a whole bunch of the history of the company, including the founder's house. It's still standing.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a lot to do there. You're just not going to go in and see them make bricks, or you're going to see the design center or anything like that. That's not really open to the public.
Right. So all that stuff is in Denmark, right by the factory and all that stuff?
Yep. Yeah.
Man, that's cool. That'd be a fun visit.
It is. It's really cool.
So is it like the whole town runs on Legos, basically? Like everyone works in the town works there?
Yeah. If you're not working directly for Lego, you're there to support the people who work for Lego. It's you're making them danishes, or you're making them pizzas, or you're washing their clothes, or whatever. Yeah. And I'm sure there's other things there, obviously, but it's a huge. I don't know if they're still the number one. I think it was last year they became the biggest toy company. And
Oh.
yeah, they surpassed Hasbro or Mattel and became like the number one. I think it's only with toy sales, but
Mm-hmm.
you don't make that many toys, especially with as many sets as they design a year with a small footprint. So I think there's like 9 buildings in the Billund area, plus they have uh, where they build the giant models and stuff. They have a huge factory or facility in Czechoslovakia.
Uh-huh.
And then there's the stuff in Enfield, Connecticut, where they actually also build and design big models as well. It's like the American offices, so it's a fairly big presence there as well, but
Yeah.
not like it is in Denmark.
Yeah. And the town in Denmark just smells of like plastic bricks.
Yeah, probably all along.
Fills
Yeah.
the air. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So do you know anything about like the history of Lego, like how it got started or the founder or anything?
Yeah, I know the whole history because we had to do it for the brickumentary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Can you
actually,
give me like a I mean,
uh, I don't remember specific dates. I think it was in the 30s. The company was founded by Ole Kirk,
uh-huh.
who started as a toy company, and it was all wooden toys back then. And they were wooden toys for many years. They had a couple factories fires that pretty much almost took the company out.
Huh.
And then I don't remember if it was. I think it was his son Godfrey that was visiting a toy fair and was introduced to injection molding and brought it home and like, check this out. And that kind of became the beginning of it. There was another company that was doing the interlocking brick concept,
Uh-huh.
and Lego didn't so much steal the design, but they just took the inspiration from it and they perfected it. That was the main thing. Is the way the other company was doing it and the way Lego did it initially, the design wasn't working too well. It's when they figured out that the studs on top and the tubes on the bottom was the way to make things really lock together.
Uh-huh.
That system was born, and the fact that it was a system as well, where every set would work with other sets, and you're building the building blocks of making things with it, and what
Right.
itself can be different, and obviously it is. It's whatever you want to make with it, and that's kind of the real magic of it.
Mm-hmm. So how did they interlock before they had those like studs in there? Do you know
We
what
had
the system?
on top, and before it was just hollow on the bottom. It was the earliest bricks were just like a plastic shell with the studs on top, and they had little slits on the sides on the bottom so that you could put like windows in. And
Oh, interesting.
they do stack just fine, but they don't interlock. They don't click together and stay stuck.
Right.
Those early models, those early stuff they produced was a little fragile. You could knock it over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now they're so tight you break your fingernails pulling them apart.
Yeah, you gotta keep them short.
Yes, for real. Man, that's cool. So it was really once they figured out the injection molding and got into all that stuff that it just took off, huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they were popular before. They were a successful toy company.
Mm-hmm.
It's just and for a while they were doing wooden toys and the injection molded stuff. They didn't make just the bricks with the injection molder. They had other things as well, other toys. But they had kind of a full line of stuff with both wooden and plastic, up until the point where they had another big fire. And then they decided, okay, let's just concentrate on the bricks and the system, and we're going to phase out wood. And well, the rest is history because they've been wildly popular ever since.
Yeah, really. So have they been bought out by anybody or is still Lego just its own company?
No, family owned.
Nice. Oh, that's cool. Are they even a public company?
Nope.
Wow.
Just family owned.
That's crazy. Yeah, because they're huge. That's awesome.
Yep.
Still the same like family involved in just generational stuff? Do you know?
Yep. Yeah, it's the great grandson is now in charge of the company.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's fun.
They have other people that are running the company, especially when they had some problems in the 90s with some bad designs. They had a dark period where they
Oh no.
really terrible sets and they had too many elements they were making, and they kind of lost. They lost their path. They weren't really thinking of the end user experience. They weren't thinking of how people want to build with it. They were making sets that were too few pieces to put together to make one thing and couldn't make anything else. They started making these terrible action figures, and they very, very close to being done. And then they brought in a CEO from the outside, and he kind of put them right back on the right path.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it seems like they've had a lot of success by kind of combining all their, combining Lego with a bunch of like pulp culture stuff and movies and everything, where you can build like fun stuff from other things like Star Wars or whatever. That just seems like it was huge for them to make that move.
Star Wars was a gigantic move. When they brought in intellectual property as well as streamlining their production system, cutting the number of bricks that they produce, just making a lot of more smart business decisions, as well as making stuff that was super desirable, especially Star Wars. That was really the thing that saved the company.
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars is still like by far the most popular thing that they do.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yep. It's so fun. Do you know how when they started the got into Legoland and all that kind of stuff?
I believe that was the mid to late 60s.
Oh, that long ago?
Yeah, that's when they opened up the one that was literally right next door to the factory. Like one wall was the factory, outside of that was the park.
Wow.
In the early 90s, I think, is when they started building them other places, including here in California. I think was California the second one. I'm not sure. But they realized pretty quick that they're a toy company and not really a theme park company. So they had it for a while, and then they sold it to a company called Merlin.
Oh, okay.
They continue to be a part of it. Obviously, their brand is integrated with it. So, but as far as the day-to-day runnings of the company, Merlin is the one taking care of all that stuff now. And they built one in Florida and Malaysia, and I think there's another one someplace else.
Okay.
Yeah. So Lego's integrated into it, but does not that company.
Okay. Yeah. Seems like a smart move because that's a total different business. That's crazy.
It is. I think the park originally started just because so many people were interested in their product, and they just kept coming and wanting factory tours and stuff. So it's like, okay, let's give them something to do that's not here. They can just do it outside. Plus, there was a sculptor, the original person who built like just cool models, was a woman who worked for the company. Her name is eluding me right now, but she's kind of a legend. All of her stuff was they had a way to display her stuff, and she could make even bigger stuff.
Yeah.
So like full-size giraffes and things like that.
Right. Oh, so cool. So how do you know how what's the name for someone who like builds Legos like that? Is there an official name?
As well, if you're designing sets, you're a set designer.
Okay.
If you're building the large objects, you're a master builder. And if you're just an enthusiast, there's AFOL, AFOL, adult fan of Lego. TFOL, which is teen fan of Lego. And there's a whole bunch of other acronyms for it. It's kind of a terrible name. Some people call them awfuls, which why would you do that? Yeah, so I'm an AFOL.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you know what like the prerequisite is to get into like to become a master Lego builder?
Usually it's just a cool resume. You make some good stuff and you catch somebody's eye somewhere, but not necessarily. There was a builder named Eric Varsegi that ended up with the job. He wasn't really into Lego. He was a design guy, and I can't remember exactly what his background was, but he took a job with Lego just because it sounded interesting, not because he was into the brick, and he's one of their premier designers now.
Wow, right on.
Most of the guys there, it kind of depends on what you want to be. If you want to be a master builder, you may work for Legoland, in which case you're not working for Lego. You're working with their product, but you're working for Merlin.
Right.
They have a design studio. I think there's still one in Carlsbad. It's small though. There's like one in every park, but those have become kind of like a tourist attraction version of the model shop. They're there to maintain the models. They do build a little bit of stuff in there, but they're mostly there as kind of a showpiece for the people visiting the park. The actual they're actively making cool things were off-site. And then all that got moved to Florida and also obviously Czechoslovakia. People in Czech though are actually working for Lego. They're the ones that built like the giant X-wing that we saw a couple of years ago, and something big that the Overwatch stuff is just about to pop. They built a whole bunch of big stuff for the new Overwatch line. So they're always doing it. They're always making something huge to promote the company and to promote play.
Yeah, because that just seems like a super fun job that would be highly coveted and hard to get.
Yeah.
I could imagine.
I sort of tossed around the idea of looking to it, but Merlin didn't pay very well. And at the time, I was working in film, which does pay pretty well when you're working. So it was kind of a toss-up, and also I'd have to relocate. And I kind of like where I live, so
yeah,
I own a home here. I have kids in school. So,
right. Yeah, I get you. Well, you found a good compromise where you kind of get to do your own stuff and work on stuff that you like.
That's kind of the whole idea. Is I just want to make cool things and try and figure out a way to get paid for it. So that's kind of what I do. I still work on film. I do 2 or 3 films a year. When the timing's right and it's interesting and I feel like doing it. If it's not right, then I just won't do it. I've had offers to go to Canada to work and Australia to work and someplace else, but I don't want to do that anymore. I can't do that anymore. I'm tired of being away from my home and my family while I can make a lot of money, but it's just not worth it to me.
Yeah. Well, it's good that you're in a position where you can say no to that stuff and do what is important,
Oh yeah, I consider myself very lucky.
Yeah, very cool. So can you tell me about some of the film projects that you've worked on and kind of the stuff that you do?
Yeah, well, did you look at my IMDb link?
Yeah, I saw you worked on like Westworld and stuff like that, right?
That's one of the more recent projects, obviously.
Yeah.
I started in creature effects. I was a weird kid in school. I played with makeup starting when I was about 9 years old. And originally I wanted to do makeup and makeup effects. Let me grab a drink. Hold on a second.
No worries.
Luckily, I keep them right here.
Luckily.
Orange juice.
That vitamin C.
Yes. Donald Duck orange juice. It's the best orange juice. Fight me. Okay, so I started working in 1988, about 2 years after I graduated high school. I got my first film on the Blob.
Oh.
The one with Shawnee Smith and Matt Dillon.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was my first film.
Huh.
And back then, I started doing I was a generalist when I was making my own stuff, but the first job I got in the industry, which kind of led to the next job and the next one after that, was all doing the animatronics and mechanical stuff. So I was working on the inside of creatures for a lot of the time. I did do some prop work and some makeup work throughout the years. I sprinkled that stuff in, but most of what I did was the stuff that you can't even see in the film. It's all the substructure. It's the servos and the fiberglass underneath the creature that's moving around.
Right, yeah. So what you worked on, was the Blob that you worked on, that was a remake of the Steve McQueen one?
Yes.
Okay. So what'd you do on that specifically?
I worked, there were actually 2 sides of the shop on that. There was Tony Gardner's side. He did all the makeup and gore stuff, the stuff that was applied to actors. I worked on what was Lyle Conway's side and then turned into Stuart Ziff's side when Conway was let go. And we did the Blob Effects. We made the giant quilts, the vinyl and the foam pieces of the blob itself. I mean, it's like some miniature people and some just mostly the stuff that didn't involve the actors themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So just the blob stuff. So I spent weeks and weeks, making little mechanical guys move, tentacles, little things that flip underneath doors.
Right.
We spent weeks shooting all that stuff and just covered with slime every day. We made Methicel slime, the same stuff like from Ghostbusters.
Uh-huh.
That by the trash can full.
Wow.
Mix it with a drill in trash cans. One of the things that made the blob itself, we made these quilts. They were silk, and they were sewn together with like pockets, and then they were airbrushed with veins and stuff like that. And then they were painstakingly filled with syringes, big giant syringes full of slime. And then, they'd be draped over like the phone booth for that one section, over the kid when he's getting stretched and pulled apart.
Right.
Coming through the theater and all that stuff. There's those like these enormously heavy quilts made of silk and full of slime. We were covered with it every day.
Wow.
Yeah. And then with a product called Hexaplasm, which is like the slime that comes in little cups.
Yeah.
Buy the slime, it's like gooey stuff. We had that stuff in 5-gallon buckets, and we had a wall of it behind the production office. It was there were buckets, they were stacked up. It was like, I don't know, 40 buckets wide by about 12 buckets high. There was so much of the slime in different colors too.
Yeah.
Pink and red, and it was just, there was so much of it there.
Oh man.
Actually, when we let go, they were like, take a bucket of slime when you leave. So I'm like, all right. So I got a couple. I had a big clear one and a big pink one.
Yeah.
We ended up using that on The Boneyard, which was a terrible movie, but a pretty awesome time.
Man, that's so cool. That stuff is fun. Yeah, I've always wondered like what they do with that stuff at the end, like all that slime. They just give it away to the crew, huh?
And this particular feature, yeah. I mean, the Methicel doesn't keep. That's like it's like a food thickener. It's like the stuff that's inside apple pies. Yeah, anytime you've got kind of a gooey consistency, it's probably a combination of cornstarch and methylcellulose.
Oh, okay.
It's like a food product.
Right.
And it doesn't keep. It dries out. It'll go rancid. So
I see.
we had a couple problems with that. We had a couple times that someone was making it and miscalculated how much they made, and they would make a 5-gallon bucket of useless slop. It was like this. It's hard to describe. They wouldn't like do the stretchy, slimy, drippy thing. It was just like this stuff that would come out in handfuls. It was just terrible.
Wow. Okay, so you did kind of that kind of stuff, like the more practical effects and stuff, but then did you have to kind of make the switch to more digital stuff?
When Jurassic Park came out, I saw the writing on the wall. I was like, oh, we're extinct.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much what the case was. So I bought an Amiga computer, and I bought Imagine 3D, and I started teaching myself 3D stuff at home. And then I continued working on film. And then I think it was late 92, this company that got formed in Santa Maria called Cafe FX. Back then it was called Computer Cafe. Terrible name. Associated with things that are terrible. These two guys set up a company in this very small town just 30 minutes away from here. And my mother-in-law sent me the clip in the paper. So I was like, hey, they're using Amiga computers. So I gave them a call. I was like, you guys want to work on movies? They were like, I think we can. Oh, now my phone's making... computer's making noise. Let's see if I can do not disturb if that'll work. Yeah. Okay, let's see if that works. So I called him up, said, I think we can crack into we can break into the film. Back then, CG was super new. Nobody trusted it. Nobody thought you could really do much with it. Jurassic Park was a a shift in the attitude on it, and definitely a landmark as far as the switch to the digital technology. But still, a lot of people were, when we were doing this, people were still shooting on film. There was a big hassle between going from the photochemical to the digital and then back again. It was a tedious and difficult process, but you could do things that you just couldn't do otherwise, and it would speed up what would take an army of guys. Two guys can do in a small room in just a couple weeks, whereas you would have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars building all this stuff in real life. So if you could even do it, I mean, you couldn't do a full size brachiosaur walking. It's just in real life it would just be too much, too much weight, too difficult a technical problem.
Mm-hmm.
So you couldn't do that thing realistically, or within something that was like photo real, totally convincing, until that switch when Jurassic Park happened.
Yeah.
So we spent, and we did a lot of stuff early. It was like Foster's Freeze commercials, little ice cream guys, and it's local advertising and stuff.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't until Lord of Illusions happened. The guy who was in charge of that, he was both in charge of the creature effects and the makeup and stuff, as well as the digital and visual effects. I had worked with him on Freaked and a couple other projects, and he became like this conduit. And I ended up going over to Clive Barker's house for a good part of an afternoon, just trying to convince him that we could do a realistic cave of rock that we were supposed to be falling down like this pit to hell.
Uh-huh.
That was how leery the filmmakers were of the process back then. Can you make it look real? Because up to then it was all like Last Starfighter and the early Pixar stuff, which was fabulous, but not real, not gritty, not realistic.
Yeah.
Making that leap for a lot of people took a lot of convincing. Not so much like just the hardware and firepower that you needed. Just the tedium of having the film scanned and then put on exabyte tape, which is 8mm videotape, and then transferring that, we put it back in. We'd have to download it, put it on our hard drives. Hard drive spaces were very small back then.
Yeah.
You could work on 3 shots at a time, and then you'd have to offload it and put a new shot back on so that you can, because it just didn't have enough space for it.
Right.
Back then we were doing stuff that was pretty low resolution and pretty low bit rate and monumentally crude compared to where we are now. When you're working with stuff with 8K and 16-bit depth, you work at every frame itself is like 36 to 40 megabytes. Just a frame, one frame of this thing.
Yeah.
And you have multiple copies of it, multiple layers. You got the background, the foreground. You got elements that are shot for it, and then plus you're generating all the CG that's going to be put into a shot, and then the compositing phase. So you're just generating these massive amounts of data that would have just boggled our minds back then, because we've got 100 megabyte SideQuest drives that we're carrying on airplanes and stuff like that.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the fact that you would have to transfer it from the film to digital and then back. That makes sense though.
Yeah, and it was a big hurdle to get past. Mm-hmm. Now things are so streamlined, it's amazing. Which in the Arri Alexa, digital files come off of it, they're just handed over basically. We work on it and then hand them their files back, and they put them right back into the edit system. It's all instantaneous. It took weeks before.
Yeah.
You can turn around a shot in 4 days now.
Mm-hmm.
Literally shoot it and then have a shot you're dropping into the cut 4 days later.
Yeah. Crazy.
It's amazing.
That's cool. Yeah, so you've kind of had like almost two different careers where you kind of learned all this like mechanical stuff and maybe even the makeup and everything, but then you totally had to transition to digital.
Yeah.
And like effects and everything.
When I started this stuff, we couldn't have imagined how fast things would change and where it was going to go. When I was just starting out, digitals were still the digital stuff was still very, very crude. Nobody would thought it would get as good as it did as quick. And I consider myself lucky because I was able to do work in the photochemical days and the rubber and plastic days, and make that switch to where things are totally digital now. We still have plenty of makeup effects, as practical stuff that happens. I'm a big fan of practical, but you can also do amazing things with the computer. So I like the fact that when I approach stuff, when I'm looking at how things can be done, I'm looking at the entire spectrum of how it can be done, and I like to have that foundation in my career that I can actually think of things that way. Because I like to approach a shot. I don't do this so much anymore. I don't do visual effects supervision, but back when I did, I had my saying was the shot dictates the means, which means that you look at what needs to be done, and there's going to be a logical way to do it. If you've got a shack that blows up, build it quarter scale and blow it up. That makes the most sense. If you have water in the effect, build it as big as you can and use real water, unless it's too big. And then now we can do things really cool water effect wise digitally. It's like things like giant waterfalls and stuff like that. So there's every shot. There's a logical way to approach it. That's just the way that I think, and a lot of that is based on having had to deal with all these different disciplines and ways of doing things through the years. 30 years now.
Yeah.
My mind.
Yeah, that's cool. So I mean, when you'll recommend like doing a small model rather than doing it a full thing with CGI or something, why would you? What would be the reasons for either one?
Well, doing destruction in the computer is computationally intensive and difficult to get just right. You'll do iteration after iteration after iteration after iteration. Whereas, say you're trying to simulate like a shack getting blown apart, all the things that you get for free when you just take a shack and put a quarter stick of dynamite in it and a couple bags of gasoline, you get it all for free. The shockwave that happens, the splintering of the wood, the way that the flames develop and move out. If you shoot it slow motion, how all that stuff happens and falls apart. Doing all that in the computer, you will spend weeks and weeks just trying to get it right, to make it look right. And half the time, it never really works. So, not to say if you don't do it right when you build it and blow it up, you might have to do it again, because you can screw that up too. But
right.
Just the simulations that are required to do that stuff are also super computationally intensive. They take, big mega computers, hours if not days for every simulation that you run. And you're basically giving it all the rules to run under, saying this is what's going to happen inside. All this particle force is going to go outside. It's going to hit these things. These pieces are going to splinter this way because they're weak here and here and here. You have to lay all the rules out for it.
Yeah.
It doesn't look right. So you'll do it once and it'll look terrible. You go back and refine the rules and model the thing differently or break it apart differently. Simulate it again. It takes a couple days of it to figure out the simulation on it. So it's just quicker and easier to hire a team of experienced miniature builders who know what's going to happen in the shot, and then just hire a properly trained pyrotechnician to blow it apart.
That's cool. Yeah, and when you have both backgrounds, you can decide on that, so you are kind of in a unique spot.
Yeah.
So do you think, as things get better and better though, do you think that like building, miniatures and doing all this stuff is going to totally be gone, or do you think there'll always be a spot for it maybe?
It's the trend is less and less and less, so I have to suppose that eventually you won't do that anymore. It's because it gets every year is not a order of magnitude better, but definitely an improvement.
Yeah,
the machines get faster, the code gets smarter. How you can design things to work that way, especially with you doing the simulation type stuff. Every year is a big shift from the previous, and all the companies that are making the miniatures, there's fewer and fewer of them. So
Yeah.
I suppose eventually they won't do that anymore, at least in that particular aspect.
Right.
There's always going to be some people who hold on to it.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably be one of those people.
Yeah.
My background, but I'm not going to live forever, and there's going to be another generation of people that entertain and make cool stuff coming after that. They may not, so
Yeah.
it might be. I mean, there's other aspects that things we just don't do anymore because there's no reason to.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the infrastructure that was in place to handle film, the actual film that went through cameras, that's been decimated by the rise in digital technology. The smarter companies saw that coming and made the shift. Kodak tried. They still make film, and there's some filmmakers who are steadfast and gonna use it.
Yeah.
Rick still cuts on a flatbed, as I understand it. Shoots film and cuts on a flatbed because that's the way he's built. But he's not going to be making movies forever, and another generation's come along. But if you look at what it took to make the film itself, to shoot the film, the cameras that it took to handle the film, to transfer the film, to develop the film, to make the one lights and the edit copies of the film, the edit systems that work with film, the people who cut the negatives, all that stuff, that entire industry, all based on what started as a celluloid film that went through a camera, it's all gone now. Almost.
Yeah.
So,
that's crazy.
And what it used to take to make the digital effects, the Silicon graphics machines, the incredibly high-priced specialty computers, that's all gone now too. Literally anybody, with free software and a computer that costs as little as $250 can make anything.
Yeah.
If you got the time, you got the talent, you can make anything.
Mm-hmm.
I would have happily sacrificed a body part for that kind of ability when I was in high school.
Yeah.
So, take my foot. That's fine. That's cool. Camera. This phone has an exponentially large or higher amount of capability than the entire amount of equipment that was at my disposal, which was not all that much, granted, when I first started making movies of my own.
Mm-hmm.
Just to be able to shoot and cut and compose music. You can make an entire movie with one of these now.
Yeah.
It's been done, but you can do it. That just blows my mind.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Why aren't people doing it? Neither of my boys were like, yeah, I can do that. And I'm trying to get them, look, you can shoot movies and we can cut it right here. We can make music on it. And they're like, video games.
Yeah.
I want to throttle them.
We just always had it, so we don't appreciate it, I guess.
I guess. They're also just not, filmmakers at heart.
Mm-hmm.
I was warped at age 9 when Star Wars came out. I was like, I'm doing that. That's going to
Yeah.
be my career. I'm doing that kind of stuff. That's amazing.
Nice, yeah. Seems like a lot of people were like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like, I guess from like just being a viewer of like a movie watcher, it wouldn't really matter if it's how it's made. We just want it to look, real and convince us. But it just seems cool, at least to me, when you kind of go look up the behind the scenes stuff later and you find out that it was like a practical thing that was actually made and blown up or whatever, Yeah. It just seems cool, but it's just going to change for whatever's most practical and easiest and cheapest, I guess, right?
I still geek out on that stuff.
Yeah.
I've never grown up as far as that stuff goes. I'm still watching the behind the scenes. I love extra features on DVDs and Blu-rays. I kind of miss that they're like a dying breed now with this all download technologies. You've got the iTunes extras, but it's just not the same. It doesn't seem to me as much effort being put into that, because that was like a marketing tool. That was a way to say, here, come get this thing. I like the movie, but I can see the behind the scenes and see the commentary, listen to the commentary, and all that stuff. That's all kind of going away now, and it makes me sad because I really, really love that stuff.
Yeah.
Enough of it.
Yeah, me too. That stuff is so fun to watch. And it's just not the same when you're just watching a guy on a computer making stuff. But it is cool to see how they lay all that in there when they show you that. That is cool to see also,
I did notice. I used to subscribe to Cinemagic or Cinefx,
Hmm.
which is kind of like the premier behind the scenes visual effects magazine. It's not even really a magazine. It's like a quarterly produced small book.
Hmm.
They would put 2 or 3 films in it and just really break them down. They had like, whole interviews with the people who put it together, lots of behind the scenes pictures. And I just gobbled that up. I've got a whole collection of them. But I stopped about 5 years ago getting them because it was every picture was the same. It's like a guy sitting at a computer, a guy behind him with a foam cup, and that's like all you see over and over and over again.
The guy behind him with the foam cup. That's good.
That's, yeah, the guy in charge, and then the monkey at the computer.
Yeah.
Was the monkey.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That's cool. I love talking about that stuff with you, especially since you've like lived through the change of it. That's cool. It's fun.
Got to bridge that gap.
Yeah. So let's go back to like the Lego stuff a little bit. Did you kind of always have were you always just in your spare time playing with Legos and building stuff?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I mean, we didn't have as much as the kid 2 doors down, Sean.
Yeah.
He had all,
Oh, Sean.
all the good stuff. Sean. He had all the cool space stuff. I had some, we had a reasonable amount. He had like 5 times as much, but he was an only child.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I played with Lego since I was, I don't know, 6, 7.
Mm-hmm.
That's been a feature of my life all ever since. There's a phase that AFOLs call the Dark Ages, and it's kind of most people hit it about 10 to 12, where you lose interest in bricks, and you're like, girls, oh hey girl,
Yeah.
or boys, and the Lego goes in the attic, and then your parents sell it, and and it's this is usually this tragic story. Mine's tragic as well. I didn't consider myself too cool for it. I always wanted to play with it. It's just when my parents divorced, all the toys went with my younger sisters, and me and my brother kind of went with all the more, older child stuff. So
Right.
there was one little thing of Lego that I kept, a little box. So just not very big, like a shoebox full of Lego.
Mm-hmm.
And that eventually got stolen. So I didn't have a dark age. I have what we call a dim age, where you had a reduced interest, and then I was only reduced interest because I didn't have it anymore. Somebody took it from me. So
Jeez.
when I started making money, when I started working in film, probably about 1990, maybe a little bit earlier than that, 89.
Mm-hmm.
Once I had disposable income, I started buying sets immediately. The big Pirates line came out. That was the first time that the classic Pirates were introduced. I bought every set. I had the Black Seas Barracuda. I had the whole line, and I loved it. And I've been buying it ever since.
Yeah.
Back then, I was more of a not so much a collector, just an enthusiast. I would go to Toys R Us all the time. I realized at one point that I would always find that aisle if we were at Kmart or something. I was always looking at the toys, and I realized, I still want this stuff. Why don't you just get this stuff?
Yeah.
So I started, I have a ton of G.I. Joes. I've got action figures. I've got prop toys. I've got a lot of stuff. A lot of it's here.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of always surrounded me. And just because I enjoy it, it brings me pleasure. So, and, I could afford it, so I was buying it. I didn't really make the AFOL jump where I was like, designing my own stuff and, posting pictures and interacting with the community. That didn't happen until it's like 2005, 2006.
Okay.
Around there. I think that's around then. Yeah. About then.
Mm-hmm.
I went to my first con. I started my AFOL thing kind of started when I was fascinated with Legoland. Wanted to go there and just kept never being able to get down there. I can't remember exactly when our first trip was. I think it was 2005. It had to be earlier than that. Doesn't matter. When I went down, we probably backtrack it exactly because it was the 20th anniversary of the Lego Club, and they were celebrating at the park. I think this might have been not my first visit, but it was in the early times of visiting the park.
Mm-hmm.
They had this event at the clubhouse in the back. Everyone was making little cakes to celebrate the occasion.
Right.
And I didn't realize that it was a competition. I thought that people were just doing it, but they were actually competing to win, I think, season passes or tickets to the park or something else. I can't remember what I won. But I was like, cool, I get to play with Lego, and then I ended up having like my kids were like running for parts, they were going to get stuff for me. My family eventually lost complete interest and just went away. They went over to some other. I was there, nah, go away, I'm working.
Right.
This little birthday cake, and it had a 20 on the front. And a few weeks later, I got informed that I won, and they sent me a package of stuff. I was like, cool.
Awesome.
And every month, they actually run a contest at the park. I don't know if they still do. I think there have been a lot of shifts in way that the Legoland does things that I haven't been totally excited with. I've got a lifetime pass in my wallet, but
Whoa.
yeah.
I didn't know they had those.
Yeah. When I first went to the park, I saw that they had it. I was like, that just seemed like a really cool thing to have.
Yeah.
There it is.
A lifetime pass ambassador.
So I wanted to get one of those. They were $1,000.
Yeah.
And so I just started like socking my money away. And then we went to the park, and I was gonna do it. I had my money. I had been saving and saving for it. We went to the park, and it had doubled in price.
Oh, gosh.
$1,000. I was like, no. But then I can't remember what I worked on. I worked on some project and made all kinds of overtime. We were flush with money at the time, and it just happened to coincide with a trip to the park. I'm like, I'm gonna do it. My wife was like, go ahead. So she's my enabler.
Yes, you got to do it.
Cool thing about it is I still get 4 tickets a year to the park. When I originally did, there was like lots of perks. You get like this crazy good parking space. It's literally I could throw a rock at the front gate from my parking space if I get the best one in that section. Then there was once a year building session with a master model builder. That was really cool. That was like one of the things I found most appealing for it. And then you get 4 tickets a year to the park, and some discounts throughout the park.
Mm-hmm.
And by now, and also free parking.
Yeah.
So by now, it has paid for itself. It paid for itself probably in the first 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when I was working down in San Diego, and I could go there like 3 nights a week. But the master model builders sessions, they've turned into basically you go there, you hang out with a master model builder, you build a mosaic, which is just a picture that you build on a flat thing.
Oh.
You don't even get to keep it. They usually put it up in the park. So I guess you come back later and go, I built that. That's great. But we used to make really cool things. One of the last things I did was a tauntaun with a rider designed by Gary McIntyre. It's about that tall. Really cool, really elaborate. I still have the set. It was that cool of stuff. And somehow it's turned to a slave labor program where you make pieces for the park. So
yeah, really.
I don't know anymore. So I get my 4 tickets a year. I actually haven't been there in a couple of years. I'm now. It's far enough away. My kids aren't interested anymore, so it's kind of biding my time for where I'm going to be the coolest grandfather on earth because I want to have a lifetime pass to Legoland.
Yeah, really. That's awesome. So what do you do generally after you build a model? Do you keep it intact and display it somewhere? Or do you dismantle it?
Yeah, there's a few things that I've built that I've held on to. A lot of them I give away. I don't know why, but here, this is cool. Have it. And they're like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
I built a Star Trek phaser, and I think I've built 7 of them now. Each one of them I've given away. I've never had one from my own for very long. I've built it. Someone goes, that's really cool. And I go, oh, you can have it. Because I can always make another one. I got all the bricks.
Yeah.
The last one I gave to was for Adam Savage. We went back for the Tested Live thing. When I went there to build the Falcon, I brought a bunch of crap with me. And one of the things was that and my tricorder. And Adam was like, I need one of those. So I was like, well, sorry, Adam, because this one's Norm's. So he's got his. And I was like, okay, I'll build you one. So when I went back for the tested live thing, I brought him one with a special little background display, which is actually in the background of some of the recent videos that they post on tested.com. I was like, okay.
Oh, awesome.
It's actually in one of his display cases in his workshop.
That's cool.
Yeah, kind of fun.
So what's your do you have like a like an organization system or something for all your bricks, or are they just kind of thrown into a pile, or how do you do all that?
It's organized, but always a mess, I guess would be a good way to put it. I can't keep up with the amount of bricks that come in.
Mm-hmm.
Can never organize fast enough. And, and when we tear down a set, or we, get in a lug bulk, or we get in I guess we don't even know what that is. Lug is Lego user group. And
okay.
That's a program where they will work with the lug to place bulk orders of bricks from the company.
Oh.
We'll all get together. I belong to Logola, which is a Lego user group of Los Angeles, and we will order like $23,000 in brick from Lego once a year, and they all distribute it to the hundreds of members of the club. So then that stuff comes in as a big bag full of stuff, and most of it will probably get away, but eventually that one bag will be in the way, and it'll get tossed in a bin, and it'll just sit in there for weeks, if not months, if not years.
Mm-hmm.
So it can never keep up. They're just always sorting it.
Yeah.
If you go to my YouTube channel, the Brick Nerd, you'll see an episode of Cribs, like that MTV show.
Uh-huh.
It's a parody episode of that. In there, I show the layout of the studio, and I show how I organize the bricks. So you can see how I put stuff together.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Parody of Cribs. That's good. Okay, I want to talk about your animation that you do with the stop motion stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So how does you said you did, I think, like a 9-minute thing for that first documentary, right?
Yeah.
Like how long did that take? Do you remember how?
We had to turn that around really fast because it was a tight production schedule.
Uh-huh.
I think we did beginning to end on that thing was like 2 months, which is really fast for that amount of animation.
Uh-huh.
Things like my Batman shorts took longer. They were like 6 months, but they also needed to be squeezed in between actual paying gigs because other people would, pay us money to move plastic toys around and shoot them with a camera. Time-wise, we would probably do about 20 to 30 seconds a day, depending on the complexity of the shots. Sometimes more.
Mm-hmm.
It really depends on what's going on in it. We just did some stuff for the Lego Harry Potter line that just came out. And those were, I think we did the turnaround on each one of those in about 4 days. So it's a lot of stuff to cram into, but each one of them is only 15 seconds long.
Okay. So you're getting commissioned by this is from the Lego company to do these and stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Technically, I think they go to advertising firms. The advertising firm hires us to generate the content for them.
Right.
Back, and then they cut it into they do the music and all this stuff. It depends on what we're doing. Sometimes we do the entire thing and it's just turnkey. We get Lego, not ideas. Lego Life is an app that for your iPhones and smart devices. We did 60-second commercial and 2 30-second commercials that were derivative of the 60. So mostly footage from the 60, but each one of them had special things in it.
Mm-hmm.
That took months and months and months. Planning, I think my first initial meeting was in April, and I don't think we finished and handed everything over until October.
Wow.
Was that last year? Might have been last year. It seems like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
I had to custom build a motion control rig because of the way that they designed this. They wanted the swap to happen. There was no way to do it without building custom rig.
Huh.
So I actually have a custom built motion control system. This is the shell from a second version of it. Doesn't have
Oh.
right now, but I'm building another one.
Huh.
And you can use the software that you use, DragonFrame, to control stepper motors at the same time you're controlling the camera and you're doing the animation.
Okay.
I built a system that will track the camera in about 10 feet, I think. And there was a boom arm on it that would make it translate up and down. It was actually a slider mounted sideways. And then I designed a counterweight system so that the slider would work with very little effort when it was going up and down, because otherwise all the weight of the camera rig was on there. Then there was a hand tilt system on the front of that and a focus puller on that.
Oh my gosh.
And then a giant, like a 4-foot motorized turntable to rotate this gigantic model that was built by the model shop in Enfield. So I had to go to the design meeting for that. They built the model. They shipped it out to me in a gigantic crate, barely fit in my truck. We're upstairs and there's no elevator here, so we had to carry it up the stairs. It weighed like 300 pounds, and then it sat on this platform, and we had to design these shots to move in on it and then rotate the model around to get these specific angles.
Yeah.
All while also animating all the characters that are on this giant model.
Man.
Hugely complex.
Yeah.
Let me double check before I send you there. I think on my YouTube channel there's a behind the scenes of it. Make sure before I put my foot in my mouth. I did one. I don't know if I put it on there. For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, this stuff is gnarly. I never knew if it was like, if the camera was moving like frame by frame like that, or if it was kind of done like digitally later, like just to make the camera look like it was moving.
Well, it depends. Sometimes if it's just like a simple zoom, you'll do that as a post effect.
Okay.
I don't see it on here. Oh wait, yeah, it is. Okay, so if you look for Lego Life, great stuff happens here behind the scenes.
Okay.
You can see how the rig that was built for this. And I also have a video on what I call the NerdFlex motion control system. Yeah, stupid name, I know. The original motion control system that was built to do Star Wars back was kind of invented. Dykstra Flex, which was named after John Dykstra, who was one of the guys who invented it. And so the Breck Nerd, Dykstra Flex, NerdFlex, you put them together, and then you're only slightly stupid. That's what I called it. And it's not groundbreaking technology. It's one of these. It is a Arduino controller with a CNC shield on top. These are little boards that like nest into these boards. This is basically for controlling a CNC machine. It's for moving X, Y, and up and down, and for drilling stuff out.
Right.
But I just modified it and used a jumper to control 4 things at the same time. You're just controlling stepper motors.
Man.
One laying here, but here's one. This is actually the end of the track system that was built. So this is a stepper motor right there.
Okay.
All it is allows for fine control of these. You're going to move this much on that frame, or to be here when you get to that frame. And anything you can hook up a stepper motor to, which is anything if you're dedicated enough, control with the animation software. So I can make like a platform move. I can make a sun come up. I can make doors open. I can make cars drive. It's just whatever you can hook up to a motor.
Man, crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. But
gnarly.
I had to build a system completely from scratch just to be able to accomplish that, because the rental prices for the equipment to actually do it, the people who make this stuff professionally, is ridiculous, and it wouldn't have fit in my little tiny stage. We would have had to rent space for it.
Yeah.
Renting equipment, renting space. Probably would have been easier just to haul the model down there, and then we'd have a huge stage we'd have to rent, all the lighting kit, and then unless we brought all our stuff down,
Mm-hmm.
and then to do all the animation, instead of being able to set our own pace, we'd have the extra pressure of the stage rental and the window that we have to perform in, as well as the crew that we have to hire to do all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I had the time while we were waiting for the model to be built, which took a little bit longer. Thankfully, it gave me time to finish this stuff.
Yeah.
Built an entire motion control system for it.
Man, that's crazy. So these things are just moving like small, whatever, fractions of an inch or whatever, every single frame.
Yep.
And then you're just taking a photo of it?
That's how stop motion works. You basically you do a slight pose, and it's when you're working with Lego, you're talking about macro photography. So these little tiny increments of change. If you want to make a minifigure raise his arm up, I mean the first pose, if you're doing it right, where you've got a little bit of acceleration to a deceleration when you get to the top of it,
Oh.
you have to start. Your hand would move almost imperceptible amount. In fact, if somebody was looking at the model and you said look away, and you did the first pose and said look back, they would swear that you had not touched it.
Yeah.
It moves so little. Things do move fast, and occasionally if you have like a minifig running, you've got a pretty big jump between. But it's like a walk cycle with a minifigure. It's the poses are so minute when you happen that anybody just passing by would not even notice that you were doing anything.
Yeah. So are those like changes? Are they just kind of done by you just make a small change and you think that seems right, or is there more to it?
It's mostly by feel and
Yeah.
by experience. You kind of know from when you've done it before. But the software also allows you to compare the previous frame. You could toggle back and forth between the frame you just shot. You can lay up an onion skin so you can actually see both images at the same time.
Oh, nice.
Usually when we're doing stuff, our working methodology here is we will do an animatic first. We will cut it first with storyboards, or we'll shoot it with an iPhone. So you just see our fingers in the frame. We'll make them go through about the speed that we want them to be, and doing the stuff kind of, it's really crude.
Uh-huh.
But then we can cut with that, and we have a really good sense of the pacing of everything.
Right.
We'll do like sound effects and edit even with music as well to try and really set the pace of it so we can lock it in, because you really don't want to have to go back and do it again because it's such a painstaking and slow process.
Yeah.
But then we can cut that scene into its individual shots, and we work with handles on the bigger stuff, so we'll actually add 8 frames at the beginning and at the end, and then that clip becomes the kind of master reference for that shot, and you can actually put it in the background as well as the sound effect.
Mm-hmm.
And while you're animating, you can switch back and forth between that reference as well as hear it when you're playing back, and then you make your notes on the side. So when they say like a certain line or a certain thing's supposed to happen, the door opens, you can put that note in, and as you're going through, you can see that frame getting closer. You're like, okay, on this frame the door opens.
I see.
Start that increment. So, and it's just a matter of posing everything that needs to be posed. It can be, a car driving through the background at the same time 2 figures are talking, and background figures are also interacting with each other. So you can be posing, 1 to 25 different little figures and have stuff going on in the background as well.
Crazy.
Get it all set up. Once it's all posed, you're back and forth, make sure everything looks good. Don't bump the camera, don't bump the lights.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And most of the time we shoot on 2s, which means we take 2 frames every time we do a pose. So we only have to do 12 poses per second if you're going to project the 24 frames per second.
Oh, okay, I see.
Really what we do. Sometimes the client will ask for 30.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the Harry Potter stuff was doing it 25, which is the normal frame rate of their television. It's PAL, which is 25 frames per second.
Okay.
Generally, we work in 24, which is the cinema rate of frame, and sometimes we work in 30, which is the broadcast standard for display.
Okay, I see. So when you do, when you're doing like 24 and you take 2 for each frame, is it essentially going down to like 12 frames per second then?
Essentially, yes. 12 frames per second, playing back at half speed, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless something's moving quickly, or we'll also, when we program camera moves, those generally are shot on ones. We don't advance the camera twice and then shoot the pose. We'll shoot a frame, the camera will move only, and then we'll do a pose, shoot a frame, then the camera will move by itself. So we'll shoot. Unless action is really fast, we'll shoot on twos, but the camera will be on ones. That way it's a nice smooth camera move. And most of the time it works just fine. Occasionally it's a little kind of jittery if the camera's moving sideways, and especially if something's moving in the opposite direction, then we'll have to on singles.
Right. So whenever the camera's moving, is that always on like a motor then? That's never being a human, is it?
We've done it by humans. Sometimes we'll do like a tilt or a pan. We try not to do like, since we have the equipment, there's no reason to do it before now. We have done stuff on sliders. We've done like big pans where we lay out an increment on the slider itself, and we'll
I see.
move the slider. We've done it before, but we don't have to now because we have the equipment.
Yeah, that makes sense. Man. So how long are the like sessions generally that you're in there doing this for? Are you full like 8 hours at a time, or is it kind of shorter stuff? Because it's
broken up, but it depends on the shot. There were some stuff like for Lego Life. Generally speaking, James does most of the animation. I tend to do the cinematography. We both share the building stuff, and then I do most of the compositing, the treatment of it after the fact. So we can work in tandem that way. So a typical shot, I will come in a little bit early. I will rig the shot, get everything set up. If we program a move, if it needs a move, I'll set up all the lights. I have everything all ready to go. He'll come in, make his copy or do whatever he's going to do. And it's like, we'll have the brief. This is what happens. This is about what happens. I put notes in. Sometimes he'll do his own notes. Sometimes he's, in charge of it. So he's done the pre-work as far as the edit goes. And so he kind of knows what's going to be on the background. But I'll get everything ready for him. So all he has to worry about is animation. And then he can just come in, he'll start doing that. And on the bigger stuff, I mean, he's like there was a couple shots in the Lego Life thing that were literally all day long, starting from like 10 a.m. and not finishing until like 6 or 7 p.m. It's go through it, just continue going on it. Really don't want to split it between days. Something always changes.
Yeah.
Turn everything back on. The lights are slightly different. The camera's slightly moved. I mean, this building's, it's got a wood frame on it. So just the temperature difference between the night before and the morning after, the building's slightly, just the floor is slightly different. I mean,
gosh,
with the minuteness of the macro scale that we shoot at, it becomes a huge problem.
Yeah.
So we almost never span a shot between days. We don't start it and then stop it and then pick it back up again later. We just carry on. Sometimes it makes for a very long day.
Yeah. Whew, man, that's crazy stuff. I admire anybody who does that because that is like tedious time work stuff, but it looks so cool when it's done.
Yeah. But James is fast too. He's a fast animator. He's way faster than I am. I did most of the animation in the sequel to the Batman versus Superman was me, and I probably work at half the speed that he works at. It boggles my mind how quick he is.
Jeez, crazy. And you always got to be like super focused because like any one mistake, it just ruins it all, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Most of the stuff, I mean, you can, if you knock something over, there's a good chance that you can get everything back to where it's supposed to be because you have the reference to the previous frame that you shot.
Yeah.
You can just look at that frame and toggle back and forth between it. You'll see if anything's off. Occasionally, something will happen, like a tree will get bumped in the background, and it's now getting it back into the same exact place is just too much work.
Yeah.
But it's not part of the frame that's all the activities happening. Like the characters are down here and the tree's up in the background. We both know what I can accomplish on the comp side, and just don't worry about it. I've got 8 good frames of it just sitting there. That's all I need. I'll just split it in. I'll cut that out and have it going. Stabilize the shot, stabilize that. I've got all I need to make the frame, fix that frame. Take advantage of that sometimes. We'll do, like, it was a bunch of stuff. We did So it's got a new name. When we worked on it, was it's called DC Comic. Oh, crap! I don't want to get it wrong. It's Nathan Sawaya's Lego art show. It's Art of the Brick DC Superheroes. That's the name of it now.
Okay.
Then it was called Art of the Brick DC Comics. But it was primarily based on the Justice League. It was those main characters. And the Justice League from New 52, I think it's called. So it was... That doesn't matter. It was a bunch of superheroes. We did animations to go at the beginning of the exhibit. So as you're traveling through the exhibit and going each little section, it was all based on 7 superheroes and a section for villains. And so we did 8 total pieces. There was like a introduction animation. Then there was a figure rotating, and Nathan did like a narration that went over that. And then there was a secondary animation. So each one of those was 2 animated pieces plus the figure rotating, plus motion graphics to bridge between the two. So this whole thing would run, I think it was 5 minutes, and then it would loop.
Okay.
Itself was like 3 to 5 minutes.
Huh.
So I think that's how it worked out. God, it took so long to describe that. I don't remember what we were talking about before. Where was I going with this?
No, that's good.
I have no idea.
Wow, man. This is crazy. The stuff you do is it's awesome, man, that you've been able to do all this stuff and turn it into a business and do these crazy things. It's fun.
Yeah. My wife also works full time, so that helps.
That does help, huh?
I mean, I work in bursts, and it's feast and famine. So
yeah,
I can make a whole bunch of money in like 2 months, and then for 2 months, not much comes in. And then another 2 months, it comes in. We make approximately the same amount per year, but mine comes in these big bursts. And luckily, she works full time, and we can, and she has great insurance, so we make a good team that way. We can continue moving. If I was just on my own, I would not be able to do all this cool stuff. I would have to have something more steady and boring to make it full time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's
or
good
I'm
that
traveling around the world trying to, find work.
Mm-hmm.
Vancouver, and then now Australia, and now England, and now Czechoslovakia.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's good she's there. Especially because after every time you get a check, you go buy a lifetime pass to Legoland.
Nope, only need one of those. I'm always buying something though. I'm making props. This is a motion tracker from Aliens.
Oh, that's sweet. That's awesome.
3D printed. I want to put an electronic screen in there, so it's kind of an ongoing project.
Yeah, that was 3D printed.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, you can sort of tell on the bottom there.
Oh yeah.
So that actually attaches. It's got magnets.
Oh my gosh, awesome.
And it's pre-wired. Just electronics was supposed to go inside. It's kind of on-off switch.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff actually works on it. So
this is so cool.
I'm gonna build this and finish it eventually. So it's kind of that's one of those things. It's like I'm gonna spend like another $100 on electronics for it. So I got to make sure that everything else is taken care of. Since the holidays are coming, that project's gonna get ignored for a couple months.
Right. Yeah. So is all that kind of like the nerdsandmakers.com and all that kind of stuff? Is that more just kind of hobby stuff for you?
Yeah, it's kind of everything. Well, everything including Lego. It's the cool thing about it. The problem was I had Brickner.com. I've got the Instagram. I've got the Twitter, and and I'm making like my Han Solo blaster here. And pictures of it to my Bricknerd account. And people are enjoying it, but it always seems like really out of place. Why am I sharing this on my Lego dedicated fan site?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
So it just occurred to me I need something that's got a broader scope, which is probably how I should have approached it in the first place. But now I have both. I have Nerds and Makers, which I call the intersection of nerd and maker culture. it's because I plan on doing way more with it than I've done so far. And right now it's just me, but there's a reason it's plural. I want to have a community. I want to have more people involved.
Cool.
And it's anything. It could be whatever you're passionate about, sewing or cosplay or knitting or carving wood. It doesn't matter. That's the cool thing about it is it can be anything that anybody who is not satisfied to let nothing be there. They got to make something.
Yeah.
And even like the consumption of things too. I want to do like bad movie night on there and things like that. It's like all these different things that make me happy and that engage me. And this is kind of a universal platform to share all that stuff. Because at my core, I'm a nerd and I'm a maker.
Yeah.
And I want to find more people, more me's to hang out with, and we can all share in the same place.
Right. Cool, man. So do you just see it as kind of like a place to share that and display it and just have other people who make stuff share their stuff on there too?
Yeah, that's the idea.
Cool.
And it can be anything. It doesn't have to be specifically from pop culture, or it could be someone who turns license plates into decorative art. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Whatever you're passionate about, that's pretty much what it can be.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm totally into stuff like that. Like I built a bunch of stuff. Like I made a shoe phone from like Maxwell Smart Get Smart. Put like a Bluetooth headset in my like wooden shoe.
Oh, awesome! I want to see this.
Yeah, I still have it. I think it still works. I'll pull it out.
Definitely want to see this.
Yeah, I got stuff like that, and just made like the hoverboard from Back to the Future. Made that into a skateboard for me to use, and made the leg lamp from Christmas Story.
Dude, you're totally a maker.
Yeah, I love that stuff. It's fun. I wish I moved out now. I'm just kind of in like a teeny tiny studio apartment, so it's kind of tough to do stuff now. Yep. But yeah, I want to get a space where I can start making things again.
Having this space has been absolutely amazing. I mean, I used to build stuff in my garage, and we have had a smaller place. It's just on the kitchen table.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, my wife is patient and has put up with a lot of crap through the years. But since building this place, we're both much happier. I mean, I do have to pay rent here, but having a dedicated place just to have a place to put all this stuff and to create anything I want is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
So awesome.
Yeah, man.
Recommend it if you have the means, and maybe I don't sometimes, but it is. So
yeah, I'm jealous. There's some cool places that have it's like a maker space where you can buy like a membership to it. Oh, yeah. There's one in Costa Mesa here where like you get 3D printers and CNC machines, all that stuff, and it's only like $100-$200 a month, and you get access to all that stuff.
To it. That's kind of what I want to do here too. I keep kind of reaching out, trying to find. I know in this, and it's a small town, granted, but I know there are people who are doing things with their hands and creating stuff, and I can't seem to find them. So eventually, I could see myself starting a makerspace just here in my town, just because I want to bring together all the creative minds, and because everyone, especially when you have a group of people, so and so's got a table saw and he's got a 3D printer, and the other guy can weld, and every one of them has always got that one tool that they need or the skill set that they don't have yet that can help. And when you build a community of makers, you can build anything. How tremendous is that?
Yeah, totally. And it's like too, like when you build something, you want to like share it with other people who are interested in that stuff too.
Exactly.
Totally.
Eventually, I'll find the makers in this small town, or at least in the central coast of California, and we can all unite and pool our resources and build a cool place.
Yeah, you'll do it.
Okay.
Sweet. Well, man, Tommy, it's so fun talking to you. I love this stuff. So I guess real quick, why don't you go over where we can all find you at Bricknerd and your other at nerdsandmakers.com and all that stuff.
Bricknerd.com and Nerds and Makers. It's not ampersand is part of the logo, but the actual URL is nerdsandmakers.com. All 3 words put together.
Okay.
And then you can find my social media stuff on both of those places. If you look at me on Twitter and Instagram, it's the Brick Nerd because Brick Nerd was already being squatted on. And the other one's Nerds and Makers as well.
Okay, perfect. I'll put like links to all that stuff too, so people can click on that stuff easy in the show notes.
Cool.
Perfect. Well, yeah, thanks, Tommy. Appreciate you being on and taking the time to talk about this stuff. It's fun.
My pleasure. I had a good time.
Yeah. All right, man. We'll have a good rest of the day. All right.
You too.